Italians once felt proud to be at the center of a strong European economy. But today, Italy has become a warning sign. On the surface it looks stable, but underneath, the economy is held up by debt, slow growth, and social problems. Headlines talk about Meloni's Italy, with borrowing costs similar to France and a low deficit, but these numbers only hide the truth. Behind him is a country fighting weak growth, poor productivity, and a constant loss of young talent. For all the talk of stability, Italy's economic engine is barely running. By 2024, growth was only 0.7% and is expected to slow even more. Italy has Europe's second-largest manufacturing sector, but ranks only 14th in innovation, and it has the highest debt-to-GDP ratio in the entire Eurozone at about 135%. Italy's situation feels like a slow national drama, one that could reshape Europe's future. Italy was once famous for its post-war economic miracle, but those days are long gone. Growth collapsed from an average of 5.6% a year in 1955-74 to just 0.68% between 1995 to 2019. In recent decades, Italy's average annual growth was only about 1.2%, half of the EU average. Italian economists even have a name for the problem: the Italian disease, where family-run companies and old networks refuse to adopt new technology. Between 2014 and 2019, even strong export industries could only pull Italy slightly out of the recession. By 2025, momentum was gone again. GDP fell 0.1% in Q2, ending 7 straight quarters of growth. The promise of modern prosperity has faded. Italy moves forward slowly, weighed down by decades of unfinished reforms and lost competitiveness. Italy's fiscal picture is also grim. Its public debt is one of the largest in the world, 128% of GDP in 2015 and above 135% today, with forecasts showing it could reach 139% by 2027. Paying interest on this huge debt requires strong growth, but Italy's weak economy can't deliver that. In 2023, the deficit hit 7.2% of GDP, far above the EU's 3% limit. In 2024 it fell to 3.4%, but mostly because of temporary measures and the €194 billion Italy received from the EU Recovery Fund. Italy now walks a tightrope, extremely high debt on one side, and EU rules demanding low deficits on the other. Brussels has warned that sanctions may come if Italy doesn't reform, but punishing a founding EU member is politically dangerous. For now, Italy's leaders celebrate credit rating upgrades and talk about credibility, but critics say it's just a nicer image, not real economic change. In short, Italy's finances are on life support. Public debt is above €2.7 trillion. Interest payments take up around 6% of GDP each year. And while much of the debt is held inside the country, which reduces some risk, the fundamentals remain troubling: shrinking demographics, rule violations, and growth too weak to keep debt under control. Even the lower deficit hides deeper problems. Economists warn that only strong, long-term growth can save Italy's finances. Without it, austerity slows the economy more, low productivity keeps revenues low, and Italy drifts toward yet another debt crisis. While Davos panels praise Italy's deficit cuts, young Italians live a very different reality. Youth unemployment has been shockingly high for years. After the 2008 crisis, it peaked around 43% in 2014, nearly half of all people under 35 without work. Even in 2016 it was 38%, and though it has since moved closer to the EU average, the situation remains tough. Even with overall unemployment at 6% in 2024, young people feel stuck. Most jobs are part-time and low-paid. Stable careers are rare. So they leave. And the scale of this brain drain is massive. Since 2011, 500,000 young Italians have moved abroad. Between 2011 and 2021, 110,000 university graduates, one-third of an entire generation, left. Analysts compare it to bleeding. Italy loses about 1% of potential growth every year because so much talent disappears. This loss changes the whole society. Schools shrink. Research centers lose staff. Families break apart as children move overseas. Those who stay face a country with lower wages and fewer opportunities. Italy now ranks second among G7 countries, only behind Japan, for human flight and brain drain. Every skilled young person who leaves takes away part of Italy's ability to innovate. Politicians talk about tax breaks and incentives to bring people back, but these don't solve the core problem. A culture that avoids risk and the attraction of higher pay abroad pull young talent away, especially from the south. Italy is left with an older population and fewer educated workers. The economic cost is huge, but the social cost is even greater. A country cannot thrive when its youth escape. Losing a generation is not just a statistic, it is a deep wound. And Italy is aging fast. Its demographic crisis is severe. In 2024, only 370,000 babies were born, the lowest number since Italy became a country in 1861. Births have fallen every year, now almost 36% below 2008 levels. The fertility rate hit a record low of 1.18, far below the 2.1 needed to maintain a stable population. Meanwhile, deaths remain high, around 651,000 in 2024, creating a large natural population decline. Italy lost 37,000 people in 2024 alone, and nearly 2 million since 2014. 1/4 of Italians are over 65, and life expectancy is around 84. Even after COVID, the gap between births and deaths remained huge at 281,000. Italy now has a median age of 48.7, the highest in the EU, and only 12.2% of the population is under 15. These numbers have real consequences. A shrinking workforce must support more retirees, putting pressure on pensions and healthcare. Towns are emptying out as young people leave. Some companies even pay families to have children. Many households depend on the savings of grandparents to survive. Without immigration or a sudden baby boom, Italy faces an economic collapse in slow motion. One analyst put it simply, Italy is holding together only because of past savings and family support, but that cannot last forever. Ironically, Italy's recent signs of success are based on help from Europe. Italy received the largest share of the EU's Next Generation Recovery Fund. Its plan included €71.8 billion in grants and €122.6 billion in loans, a total of €194.4 billion, equal to 10.8% of its GDP. By mid-2025, Italy had already received most of it. These funds helped lower the deficit and boosted growth for a while. But the money must be spent by late 2026, and many projects are still delayed by red tape. Italy's future is also tied to Germany. Germany is Italy's biggest trading partner. 13% of Italian exports go to Germany, while 17% of imports come from Germany. When German industry slows, as it has recently, Italian factories feel it immediately. Studies show their business cycles move almost in sync. A downturn in Germany often becomes a downturn in Italy. Italy also depends on Germany inside the EU. The European Central Bank's loose monetary policy helps keep Italian borrowing costs low. And Italy needs Germany's backing when negotiating EU debt rules. But this relationship is risky. Any major problem in Germany, a recession, China slowdown, or Eurozone instability, could drag Italy down with it. Italy is also deeply divided. A rich, industrial north stands next to a poor, struggling south. Lombardy, home to Milan, has GDP per capita at 127% of the EU average. Calabria and other southern regions sit at only 56%. The richest region is more than twice as wealthy as the poorest. Unemployment is much higher in the south, and infrastructure is weaker. Mafia activity still scares off investment. These gaps influence everything. Most young Italians leaving the country are from the south. Tax incentives could not reverse the trend. Jobs and opportunities remain limited there. Even the north has its own divides, like between wealthy Lombardy and poorer Veneto. Culturally, stereotypes grow, and politics often splits along this north-south line. For all the talk about national unity, Italy sometimes feels like two countries pretending to be one. And when the national budget is under pressure, both sides question whether they are carrying more than their fair share. In the end, Italy's story is bigger than Italy. It is a warning for Europe. Here is a major Western country stuck with low growth, high debt, an aging population, and a shrinking workforce. It forces Europe to ask tough questions. If Italy cannot regain prosperity inside the Eurozone, who can? How long can the EU ignore its own rules when a founding member breaks them? Will the next big EU crisis be Italy itself?